I'm Stila Webb.
And I'm Siobhan Ghosh.
I'm going to write my first fiction novel this year.
And I'm going to film it.
And we're going to release one video each week.
And if you keep up with Stila's word count, by the end of 2017, you'll have...
Ton livre, cette année.
Today we're going to plot out my book using the Blake Snyder Save the Cat method. If you like it, I highly recommend that you buy it. It's about $12 on Amazon for either the physical or digital copy, and about half that if you buy it used. Today we're going to use page 70.
Right, all the beats you see on the board, we're going to put them up on the screen in a second. They're coming from page 70 of the book. So here are the 15 beats we're going to go through. Pause this video So here are the 15 beats we're going to go through today. Pause this video now and write them down if you don't have a copy of the book handy. For each of these beats listed, you should have a scene or multiple scenes you can attach to it to show that idea in your novel. It's okay if you don't have a scene in mind right now for every beat. We'll find that Stila doesn't either. One reason for beating out your plot is to figure out where you might be missing scenes that you need to tell a full story. So even though we're beating out Stila's urban fantasy book, follow along with your own novel and see if you hit the same points in your novel to make sure you haven't missed anything.
Now on to my book. I say while you move.
Go ahead, This video is not going to be as tightly edited as the previous videos because there's a lot of give and take in the rummaging around process.
Yeah. So the working title right now is Cat Called. It's probably going to end up sticking, but whatever. It's a contemporary fantasy and it's set in New Hampshire. It's about a woman. Damn it. That's
Tell me more. Tell me more.
It's about a woman whose parents get kidnapped and she discovers that everything she thought she knew about the world isn't true and it tears her life apart and everything's awful because of it.
But the woman and her identical twin can...
They can change into cats. They are cat shifters.
That's what makes it a fantasy.
Well, yeah, that and the fae and gods and magic and it's fantasy. So the first beat is the opening image. We touched on this briefly in the last episode where we talked about the opening image needing to be mirror images of each other. That I actually do have. And this is where the main hero starts their story. This is the day in the life, this is the world before they start their adventure. And I have a final image. And
They can't read that. Oh my god, this is the door.
I did the best I could with it. Alright, the opening image is the first scene of the story that sets up the before picture of the main character's life. This is a snapshot of what is and should be mirrored by the final image at the end to show how things have changed because of the events of the story. So my opening image are the twins together, having fun, being twins. Should we do the final image as well?
Yeah, I think it's a good time to do the final image now.
And I actually do have a final image. In fact, these are probably, I was thinking about this today, the first two parts of my story I actually came up with. So, the final image, the main character, Brea, is alone.
So,
you never get to see that card again.
Twins together, twins apart. Opening and final image mirror each other. Make sure that works for your book as well.
Yeah, it's very emotionally satisfying. The second beat is theme stated. A question or statement made by someone other than the main character that states the theme of the story. Like, be careful what you wish for, stop and smell the roses, things like that. You really see this often in movies. This can be either very explicit or subtle, but the point is to have it stated so you can make sure the story fulfills the theme of the book.
I remember the movie Home Alone for this, because with it, just like a good Blake Snyder book, in the first 5 or 10 minutes of Home Alone, Kevin wishes, I wish my family would just disappear and leave me alone for Christmas. So something like that, it doesn't have to be that explicit, but it should be stated early on in the theme stated section. So is that this?
No, I don't really have one yet. I think I know what it is, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, so like you said, this is one of those things you can go back and fill in afterwards. Maybe it takes a couple chapters of writing to figure out what the theme state is. For this book, for Cat Called, I think it's going to be something like, you better leave wild enough alone, like there's wild things in the forest that you don't want to mess with, or...
I think it might be things are not what they seem.
Yeah, things are not what they seem. There's a whole world underneath the world that we live in. That's a common theme in urban fantasy.
Yeah, it could be that, it could be the parents' protectiveness, there are lots of things it could be. Alright, the next beat is the setup. The setup is what sets up the characters, the stakes, and the world the characters live in. This is usually the first 5 to 10 minutes of a movie or the first chapter or two of a book. A good rule of thumb is that this should be a chapter or two long and should introduce the main A-story characters so that you know who they all are. In a 100,000 word book, this should happen in the first 10,000 words, or roughly 20 pages.
And this is the first one that Blake Snyder beats that is not just a single beat, but can be spread out over a couple scenes. So I drew it with some arrows. You can take a couple scenes. This whole first section can be considered setup up until the catalyst. So is that the party?
That is the party.
Party.
Halloween party is the setup.
Yeah, so her two main characters have a party that they go to, and they argue like twins, and you get a sense of their characters and what they're doing.
You meet some of the co-workers, because it's an office party. You meet some of the main characters that'll come into play later, things like that. The only thing I would specifically say about this is don't make your setup too long. You risk losing your reader because they get bored. Things need to happen. For me, that is one scene. At the end of the first chapter, they're done with the party, and they're going to move on, and the catalyst happens in the next chapter, so it's like 15 pages in.
Alright, so now you started the book with a strong opening image. Someone, maybe the main character or someone else, has stated the theme of your book, and you've set up the main character at home and life and work. You set up the main character at home, at work, and play. Those are the three Blake Snyder areas you have to set them up. So now that you've done that setup, it's time for the catalyst. The main character has to be thrust into the adventure.
This is the thing that sets the story in motion, the event that makes the character want to take an action. It's the call to action, the thing that interrupts the character's normally scheduled program to bring you the story. Yeah, in Star Wars, it's when they get the droids, and Luke Skywalker's cleaning out the droid, and it shows Princess Leia. That's a call to action. That's a hint of something more to the world than what he has, something he's interested in. And that's the catalyst. That's what starts his mind ticking.
Yeah. You'll see that a couple of other things are things the hero has to do. The break into two are things the hero has to do, but the catalyst is something that happens to the hero. Usually the hero is a passive in this one. It happens to them.
Yeah. Go ahead. So for me, that's when my characters find out that their parents are missing. They call them on the phone and there's nobody there. They can't get an answer, and this does not happen. The debate. This is the next speed. This is when the main character debates about answering the call to action. Are they going to go slay the dragon or let others do it? Of course they are going, but they don't know they are in a story, so they have to think about it and decide whether they're going to move forward or not.
The reason this is there is think about how boring a story would be if an innocent, naive farm boy finds like a magical sword and it's like, you have to save the princess. And he's like, okay. Like there has to be a little bit something, there has to be a little bit of, oh, should I go save the princess? Am I worthy enough? Can I do this? Because we all have that same doubt in our hearts. So that's what the debate is there, is to make the story a little bit more rounded and three-dimensional.
And always remember that your characters don't know they're in a story. They don't know they're being written in a book. So it's okay for them to react like we would. Like if someone came to our door right now and offered us a magical sword to go on an adventure, we probably wouldn't take it. So it's okay for the characters to go, I'm not sure if I want to do this or not, even though we know they're going to. So try not to meta-read too much.
Yeah.
The break into two.
Whoa, go back. What's the debate in your story?
Oh, that's right. Sorry, I forgot. So, my story...
Spoiler alert for Catcalled, by the way.
Oh, so many spoilers. All the spoilers. So in this, they find out their parents are missing, and they have to decide what they're going to do about it, because my main characters have jobs, and they have to go to their job on Monday. But their parents live in Montana, and there isn't really anybody they can call to go check on their parents. So they have to debate, are they going to go to Montana? Are they going to try to get a plane? Are they going to drive? Are they sure they want to do this? They have to get time off from work, blah, 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 blah. A normal debate that people would have in the real world.
Yeah, and one thing to watch out for, when you have your main character debate with someone about should I go on this call to adventure or not, that someone needs to be set up earlier on. So it's kind of weird to have them debate with a random waiter they just met. It's kind of funny, maybe a random character, but they should debate with someone who's meaningful to their life, someone who's set up in their life earlier on.
So in this case, it's the twins. They're going to be debating because they live together currently. All right, next beat, the break into two. Now, if you remember from the three-act structure, you'll notice the three acts are here. We've got the first act, and this is breaking into the second act, and then we're also here going to break into the third act. So the structure, three-act structure, is within this also. This is the moment when the hero takes that first step on the road to adventure and out of the world they have always known. It has to be the hero's decision. The plot can't just happen to them to make them do it. This is where the hero goes, no, we are going to Montana.
So one of the biggest problems of first books is the break into two is sometimes a passive event. Sometimes the hero gets dragged into the adventure or tricked into the adventure. But for a really strong book, for a hero you can really resonate with, the hero should take some positive action to break into two. I love the hero taking a sword off the wall that his family hasn't been used in 20 years, or the hero taking a suitcase out or picking up an instrument he hasn't played in 5 years. I love the heroes taking things off a wall apparently, but think about that. For the break into two, maybe the hero picks up the phone and calls someone she hasn't called before, and the reader should know by the physical action that something cool, something momentous has happened.
Yeah, this is one of those things you really have to watch out for when you're doing your book, is making sure that from here on out, the main character is proactive. They are driving the plot forward with the decisions they're making.
Well, a little bit.
Right. Consequences can happen. Like, I'm going to go do this to fix the problem, and then a bunch of horrible other actions happen as a consequence of that, and they get themselves in a whole lot of trouble. That's okay, as long as the main character is taking that initial action throughout most of the rest of the book, and they're not just having things happen to them and doing nothing but reacting. Alright, yes, okay, so the break into two for this was they're going to call their boss to ask for time off.
They're billionaire, suave, good-looking
I don't know that it was a
boss,
billionaire, but yeah,
who has a mysterious, dangerous quality about him.
yeah, he's a little hunky. Okay, he's a lot hunky. Alright, B story. A secondary plot thread that carries the theme of the story. This is usually a relationship, a person who is pivotal to the climax, a lover or friend that gives the hero the moral support they need to get the job done.
Yeah. In an action comedy, this is when they meet the girl. If you think of Men in Black, this is when they met the cute, she was a morgue person?
Yeah, she was a mortician.
Yeah, if you think of Men in Black, this is when they met the cute morgue person, who would eventually become a Men in Black at the very end.
Yeah,
But
a
yeah.
woman in black, if you will.
Uh,
In Star Wars, this is Han Solo. In A New Hope, it's when they meet Han Solo. He's the B story.
And when you're choosing a B story, it doesn't always have to be a romantic interest, like Han Solo and Luke wasn't really romantic, but the B story is going to come back and help the hero out at the very end. So when you're choosing your B story, think about the thing that's going to push the hero to overcome the final hurdle at the very end. It'll be related to this B story somehow.
It's relational, but not necessarily sexual. So for this one, it is Rafe. Sorry, I'm a girl. He's going to offer to take them on his own private plane and fly them to Montana. So I know.
The
so
hunky,
dreamy.
dangerous billionaire who has an air of mystery about him is the romantic interest? What a shocker.
I know, right? You can't see that coming. Alright, now we're on to fun and games. And this is my husband's favorite part. Absolute favorite part. These are the scenes that make up the trailer for your story. This is the promise of the premise. We'll get into that in a second. It's the fun part of the story where the characters haven't yet faced the hardest decisions or highest stakes. They and the reader are still having fun on the adventure.
So, the fun and games is the whole reason you wrote the book in the first place. It's what made you come up with the idea, it's what you're going to put in the blurb of the book, it's what you're going to put on the back cover, it's like Stila said, it's what you're going to put in a trailer if you made a movie out of it. And just like the setup, the fun and games isn't one scene. It's a bunch of scenes. In fact, these are where your set pieces happen. These are when
Montages. Movie montages happen here.
montage. Anytime there's a training montage, it'll be in the fun and games section.
Eye of the tiger, baby.
Yeah. So don't just, when you're doing this for your own book, don't just have one scene. You can have multiple scenes of the fun and games. This is going to be a meat of the book. FYI, turn off your phone.
Yeah, sorry. It's blowing up over here.
Yeah, everyone turn off the phones in the audience here?
Silent. I don't expect people to text me this time, right?
Okay. When we help young writers, here's the section we have to help them the most. You've got one scene called Secret World, which is okay.
It's not one scene, that's just summing up this beat. This is when the cat girls realize that the world they thought existed is a lot bigger than they thought. So there are several scenes of them meeting other supernatural creatures, finding that things that they did not think actually existed do exist. So there are multiple scenes, but for the sake of brevity, I was trying to keep it. These cards are tiny. What can I do?
Usually, the benefit of the Blake Snyder method and putting these cards here is that you can tell when there's cards missing. Like for example here and here.
Oh wait, there are a lot missing down here.
Alright, so just give us an example of one fun and games section that you put in here. And do this at home for you as well.
Yeah,
So, Secret World, what are they investigating? What's one kind of mythical creature that they come across that's fun in this section?
Fae.
Elves.
No, the Fae. Fairies. Think the Seelie and Unseelie court.
Alright, so Fae discovered?
Yeah, they find out that they're Fae. They run through the forest. They change into cats. They sniff around their parents' house to pick up a scent. They get to their parents' house. It's ransacked, but super neatly, into their cat selves, but of course they do it secretly so that Rafe doesn't notice, so one of them becomes the house cat. They find out that their mom's a witch because they find her altar and the spell, like some of her spell components. So this is kind of when they're discovering that their parents were hiding things from them, that there was a world that their parents knew about that they were never clued into.
Alright, so Mom's a Witch. We've had some fun and games. You know, we're in the secret cabin, we're discovering a secret world. Their parents' house is ransacked, but very, very neatly. It's all fun and games, but then something happens. What happens?
This is the end of the fun and games. This is when shit gets real. Something big happens here that changes the whole tone. Either a false victory where the hero thinks they have won and finds out how wrong they are, or it's a false defeat when the hero thinks they have lost, only to find they haven't yet begun to fight. Either way, this is when the stakes become higher, clearer, and the bad guy has decided he's done toying with the main characters.
In Star Wars A New Hope, this is Obi-Wan dying. Right? It's all fun, we're having fun sneaking around the Death Star, but then your mentor gets killed. Yeah.
And that's when Alderaan's gone.
No, I disagree with you.
No, Obi-Wan dying is Dark Knight of the Soul.
Nope.
All is lost.
Nope. Not correct.
Yeah, okay. We're going to disagree on that then.
Yeah. Just like the other things, the midpoint doesn't have to be one specific scene. It can be a couple of scenes or a motion. Blake Snyder describes this as a party at the midpoint. So a lot of the main characters getting together usually, and where something happens. If there's a big party or a get-together or a big meeting or a summoning, that's usually a good point to have in midpoint. So again, read the book for more details, but this is when stuff gets real. So what is it for your story?
This is when, if it's a single moment, it's when the father dies. But this is when they find who is holding their parents and what the stakes are for that situation, what they have to sacrifice or give to get their parents back. And their father disagrees with giving them what they want and ends up dying as a result, and then they all scatter again.
So again, they go to the Fae court and they find a bunch of people, and there's also explaining, but it's a party at the midpoint. A bunch of people come together. Rafe, the other sister, the Fae court, the father, the parents, they all come together, and that's when this midpoint happens. Again, party at the midpoint, a good way to remember it.
And then we move into bad guys close in. This is always the point in the story when literally the bad guys are right on their heels the whole time, chasing them down, or hurting things, or destroying things, or things get a lot worse. This is the point in the story where, I'm way off the camera. This is the point in the story where you have to kick your hero when he's down. This is when things are going to get worse. And he's gonna lose friends, he's gonna get injured, whatever. And you just kind of have to beat him until there's almost nothing left. He's got a couple broken ribs and broken nose, and it's bad.
This is also coincidentally the point of the novel that's hardest for young authors to write. Because this is all fun, it's great to see the hero on the rise, but no one likes to see their hero fail. And typically people don't make their hero fail enough. They don't kick out enough supports. So, what do you have for your bad guys close in section, Stila?
There are no more cards, are there?
There are no more cards. These cards are empty now. So, most likely, if you're playing this out at home, you've got maybe the opening image set, maybe you've got to know the final image. Most people have an idea of the fun and games section, but most people, especially first-time authors, have a big gap here in the bad guys close in. This is where each of the bad guys' plot threads have to advance. The hero has to lose, all setting up the big climax, but nothing here.
Yeah, nothing there yet.
Okay.
And part of this is just due to, I realized when doing this that I had characters that did not belong here. Which is another great helpful point. Like there was another shifter in there somewhere doing stuff and they were fighting the wrong bad guy because I had a god. Yeah, like you're gonna fight a god. It was stupid, so I had to rework a bunch of it and I don't know what's happening there
So,
at all.
this is one of the benefits of the Blake Snyder Save the Cat process, is you can tell where the holes are. So we discovered that while making this video. Alright, so bad guys close in, we have to put something there later on. What's after that? So the bad guys are going to get more and more powerful, the hero's going to get weaker and weaker, until what?
All is lost. This is the point where the hero is so downtrodden, so beaten up, and they've lost so much at this point that they don't see the point in winning or fighting anymore. They can't win, nothing good is going to come of it, it's just a lost cause.
Yeah. If you ever watched...
This is when Obi-Wan dies.
No. If you ever watched Wreck-It Ralph, you'll remember there's a point near the very end where Ralph has to break the car of Sarah Silverman's princess because, for a good reason, but it fractures the relationship between them. And in Pixar movies, this is always associated with some sort of sad, music playing, the hero walking off, maybe it rains. But what do you have for the All's Lost moment?
I originally had the father dying for the All is Lost, but that doesn't work.
We gotta think of something else then.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have something to do... something.
I think it's gotta be between the twins. Like, the twins are gonna, distrust each other.
That could be,
And,
because I definitely...
One of the twins is gonna go off and I'm gonna solve this myself, and Brea's gonna be like, no, we should wait.
So one of the relationships that we have here, one of the rising arcs that I kind of looked at for this book, was the fact that in the beginning the twins are getting along really well. They live with each other, they've been together their whole lives, they're in sync, they understand each other's stuff, they're having fun. But then because of the father dying, because Brea didn't do something, the main character, her twin sister Bella is now going to be upset at her. So Brea and Bella are going to have problems. So that's going to come out through the bad guys close in, where they're fighting each other. There's strife between them. They're not agreeing. They're not working together well. And I think that's going to have to be the all is lost moment when, in fact, that's great, that for some reason, Belle decides she's done. She's going to take the key and she's just going to go and give it and get her mom back and it's done.
If you're writing a book which involves a team or a sports team or a military team or a fantasy team, this is always the spot where the team breaks up.
That's the best.
If you're writing a book that involves a magic sword or a magic amulet or some sort of magic thing, this is the spot where the hero loses it or the magic breaks. If you're writing a book about someone who has superpowers, this is always when they lose their superpowers. Whatever the hero relies on the most is taken away from them in this all is lost moment. Oh, we got something.
That is the power of the Blake Snyder method.
So again, while you're doing this on your own, again, get a big whiteboard or a corkboard and put these up, move them around, look for holes like that, and just think and go, what could go here? And watch some movies, really good movies to kind of give you ideas. Star Wars, any kind of Pixar movies do this very well.
Oh, Pixar is almost right down the line.
Yeah, so you watch a Pixar movie and beat it out, and you'll see the parallels to your own story.
Wall-E.
Okay, so going back to the end of the book, you've had the all is lost moment, and right after the all is lost moment comes the dark night of the soul. Again, sad music here in a Pixar movie, someone's walking in the rain. This is when the main character realizes everything they've done is for naught. They start questioning themselves. They're like, did do this right. I should never have gone on this adventure. And the main character is about to give up.
Yeah, this is the character reacting to this. This is them taking a moment. It could be 5 minutes. It could be a week in story time. But they need to process this. The dark night of the soul is when they really, really get to feel all the negative emotions that come with what they've suffered so far. Because once you process those emotions, then you can put them aside and move on to breaking into 3.
In Top Gun, the original Top Gun, again, this is when you have superheroes lose their powers. So in the original Top Gun, this is when Maverick can't fly anymore. Maverick's like, I'm gonna quit. I can't be a fighter pilot anymore. So what is the Dark Night of the Soul for your book?
I think if if this is predicated on the father dying, I think this is going to be Brea deciding that the father's death was meaningless. So the MacGuffin in my book is a key that opens a gate.
A mystical gate.
A mystical gate between worlds. And they're protecting it. And the father put it on them, but they didn't realize it, to keep it safe. And so the father doesn't want the twins to give it to the bad guy who's trying to take it away from them. So he makes sure, he gets himself killed trying to make sure that they don't give that up. But since Bella now took the key and plans to give it to the bad guy in exchange for their mother, whom they're still holding, the father's death is meaningless. Even though Brea is very angry at her parents at this point because they've held so much, they've kept so much secret about what the world is, what the twins are supposed to be doing, what their lives are like. There's so much that was hidden from them that they weren't told, that they were protected from. So she's angry at her father, but at the same time, she still wants her father's death to have meaning because she still loves her father. So, yeah, that's got to be thinking that death is meaningless and that everything that they did up to this point doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They should have just given him the key to begin with. It's like, what was the point?
Yeah, so do you see how much more emotional that made the book? So when you watch a movie or read a book that doesn't really have an emotional punch and it just kind of peters out at the end, it's probably missing a Dark Night of the Soul. It's missing that emotional punch of the main character doubting themselves and about to give up. But then, right when they're about to give up, what happens then?
Then you break into 3. This is after they've dealt with all of this, suddenly getting all of those dark emotions out clears their mind, and they're able to decide, wait a minute, no, my father's death will have meaning. The bad guy will not win. I will not let this happen because my father died to make sure this guy wasn't going to win, so he's not going to win. And that's when they regroup. You go, you know what? I'm going to go get my friends, whoever's been helping at this point. We're going to get together. We're going to make a plan. We're going to make this happen.
This is when the team, remember how the team split up here? This is when the team gets back together. This is when they find another magical sword. This is when they realize the magic was in them the whole time. This is when the superhero finds another way to access their power. But they're not going to do it by themselves. Who helps the hero in the Breaking the 3?
This is when your B story comes in. In Star Wars, this is when Han Solo came out of nowhere to help Luke do that last trench run when he'd lost all of the people who were protecting him at that point. There was nobody left, the TIE fighters are on him. Too far?
No, I think this is when Han Solo...
That's when he comes back and says, hey kid, go for it.
I think that's the Hightower surprise, but
no, it's not. The Hightower surprise is when Vader comes out. And
Han Solo is after that.
It all happens in the finale.
The Breaking the 3 is the people deciding to go into the finale, so...
Oh yeah, I guess that's the whole rebellion.
Like, I've shot Womp Rats bigger than that on my
Oh, that's what happened, so you're right.
What's that?
Rafe has to help at this point. It has to be Rafe. And I guess this is where Rafe reveals that he's a rune master. It would make sense, it would make the most sense for that to happen here.
Yeah, he's not just
a billionaire.
a sexy, muscular, dangerous billionaire who happens to be their boss. He's also
a kick-ass magic user.
Yeah.
Woo! Yeah, come on, let me have it.
okay.
So that's what's gonna happen for that.
All right. The team's back together. We're plotting the attack on the evil castle where we got all our powers and we're going to charge for the final climactic battle, which is called the finale.
Yep, this is your climax. This is when the big fight happens. This is the trench run on the Death Star.
Yep.
This is when the big battle happens. And in my story, this is going to be when they have the final confrontation with the bad guy. They're going in and they're losing the fight and something bad happens. The bad guy's going to get the key, he's going to open the gate, but then they're going to end up winning. The father's death will have meaning, but there's a price for it. She's going to blow up the gate, but that's going to cost her sister, because her sister's going to end up getting blown through the gate before it's destroyed. And this is why, at the end, Brea is alone. The main story plot line has been resolved. The main conflict has been resolved, but it has opened up another conflict for the second book.
And what should happen is every thread you've set up in the early parts of the book should pay off in the finale. If someone is afraid of heights, they have to go up on a high tower to save the people in the finale. If someone is looking for their lost love, they have to find that lost love here in the finale. If someone has always been trying to get a promotion at work, or has always been trying to impress a girl, that should happen somehow in the finale. Tie all those threads together. Have a separate whiteboard or a post-it board with different threads you set up, and make sure they all pay off in the finale, just in little ways. Whether it's, think of the Avengers movie with Josh Whedon. That's my secret. I'm always angry. Then he punches that huge space whale. It's just a little line, but it pays off a thread that we set up earlier, and that's why it's so satisfying. So your homework this week is to beat out or plot out your own book. Take the beats we had from Save the Cat and do the same exercise for your book. And if you have any questions about this method or want to run your ideas past us, you can send us an email at an email address we set up specifically for this. hey@getwriting.wang. It's a real email address, we promise. It'll go right to the both of us. If you have any questions about what beat is this, here's an idea I have for my plot, feel free to send it to us. We only have 4 subscribers, so we're not going to have a lot of emails.
So now's the time!
Now's the time to send emails. But again, no word count for this week. Have a fully beat it out plot before we start next week when we talk about...
What are we talking about next week? Where we talk about characters.
Characters are super important to having a... so we're going to spend this much effort making sure we've crafted memorable characters for good guys and villains.
And we'll also talk about point of view a little bit. We'll do first and third person
Until then, stay awesome, Gotham.
God, I hate when you do that. Sorry, Anna. So until then, get writing.
Wang.
Always .wang. Always.